Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Yastra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's begin.
Welcome back to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast. I'm your temporary host, Marie, and in today's episode, we're exploring our ability to conserve water, a finite resource in growing demand from our own homes, from our own backyards. And to guide us through this conversation is landscaping and water management expert Cees Engelen. He runs a landscaping company, Aarde Werk, which offers a range of services from natural landscaping to water management and organic gardening. Hi, Cees. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here as well. And I'm really keen to get started on this conversation. But before we go further into detail, I'd really like to know, in your line of work, what is a top concern that your clients have when it comes to water management at home?
Well, that really depends on where they're living. So I've got some clients that have very large properties and some clients that have like a really small backyard, and it really ranges from place to place. But most of the time, it would be there's an irrigation system that's not working, that needs to be fixed, which is a really common problem. That's just is an easy fix. Another one that I had one time is one of my clients. She had a system going. She had a couple of fruit trees on her property, and she was actually using the water from her outdoor shower and bath. So it had like a pretty nice outdoor bath tub area and a grey water catchment system. Now she was spraying the grey water onto the orchard. Now, grey water is basically the water from your sink, from your shower, from your bath. So it's reusable, but it's not really clean, especially if you're using lots of soaps and things, and even on our skin there's lots of salts, and so she was using this to spray it onto her orchard. So then you were seeing that there was all these diseases from there being too much water on the leaves and everything. So I had a look at the orchard, and I could see that the health of the fruit trees wasn't really that great. So what we did is we actually installed a product called Hydro Rock, which is a water buffer made from rock wool. It's basically like a big sponge made from rock wool with the geofab around it, and it absorbs 90% of its volume in water. And we dig it into the ground, and we're connecting the grey water system to the water buffer. So now instead of it spraying onto the fruit trees, we connect it to the water buffers under the ground. Now, we backfilled the trench where we installed the water buffers with sand and charcoal. Now, when the grey water goes through the pipes into the water buffers and then leaches into the groundwater table, it first goes through a layer of sand and charcoal, and we can add perlite and wood chips on top and good soil around it. So then the water kind of gets filtered through the sand and soil before it goes into the roots of the trees. And we saw some amazing results. So we basically eliminated all the diseases from spraying the water onto the leaves. And because we're putting the water under the ground now, we have less weeds. And it was a great solution. And so because the water is not under the ground, they were getting also like a lot more fruit on their trees. And that was a great example of something that I really love to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a clever solution. Thank you for sharing that. And it's also a great introduction to our topic for the day. But before we get further into the nitty gritty and all the details, we like to get to know you better as well. So this is Have You Met Case. My first question for you is, what do you like to do in your spare time?
I like to go surfing. So when I'm not working, I like to go surfing with my fiance Ellie. We like to go to water goes here near Byron Bay. Some really nice blue waves and nice warm water. It's a great
Yeah,
way to relax. And walking my
yeah.
dog on the beach,
Oh.
watering my vegetables, tending my veggie gardens, and then cooking.
Yeah, cooking. What do you like to cook?
uh, So I've been making some really nice pastas lately. Just like growing my own cherry
Mm,
tomatoes, and I've been
yeah.
growing lots of basil.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
and my brother was here on a holiday from the Netherlands the other day, and he found one of those pasta making machines in the op shop. So we were making our own pasta with flour and water and
Yeah.
eggs and then
Oh,
making our
that's
own pasta.
incredible.
And we made our own pesto as well from the
Yeah.
basil from the veggie garden. And then
Yeah.
you just make a really simple pasta with some olive oil and
Yeah. Yeah.
cherry tomatoes. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. That's incredible. I actually got my pasta machine from an op shop too.
Did you?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah,
That's great.
because it was like $20, and I looked up the retail price, which was like 65. And I was just like, I've got to have it because this whole time I've made pasta, I kept rolling it out by hand. And, $20, that seemed reasonable, like a reasonable investment for that. But yeah, pasta is one of my love languages too. It's like once you know the basics, you can just make whatever you want, really. Like it's amazing what you can do with pasta. So it's great to hear that you like that too. I'm not alone. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Like there are plenty of people who
Yeah,
love pasta,
pretty
right?
lots of people that love pasta and pizzas, and
Yeah.
it's funny how Italians, they actually go really simple with their ingredients. Like there's just a couple ingredients and they make it so nice. And I don't know,
Yeah.
I feel like lots of people they just go absolutely crazy with the ingredients, and then it's almost like an overkill. But
Yeah.
I reckon simplicity
Yeah.
is the key to making a nice pasta. Sure.
Yeah, 100%. And especially if you have homegrown produce, that just makes it that much better. So what is your favorite room or space in your home?
That would be the kitchen, no doubt. All the time.
Yeah.
Every time I come home from work around 5 o'clock, and the first thing I'll do is have a shower, and then I put on the music, um, really loud,
Yeah.
and I start cooking. But maybe
Yeah.
sometimes first I would like water the veggie garden, and then
Mhm.
either watering, weeding, and picking at the same time. And then
Yeah.
you you go into the kitchen, and we don't have a huge garden. I might have only 4 vegetable gardens from made from some timber and filled it up with some compost and some soil,
Mhm.
and got a couple of seedlings from the farmers market. And
Mhm.
they grow in zucchini and some of the. I got those little yellow squashes. They're so nice. You can just put them in the
No.
put olive oil
Yeah.
and then with some rosemary in them. You put them in the
Mhm.
oven, and they just
Yeah.
roast up so nicely. Other thing
Yeah.
that one of my favorites is probably like potato wedges with
Mhm.
rosemary and olive oil.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
simple, but just
Yeah.
so satisfying. Yeah,
Yeah. I do you ever get squash flowers? Like
yeah. You
flowers
get
that
them all the time,
bloom.
but I haven't
Ah,
tried that yet.
yeah. Yeah, I heard that you can kind of you can cook them. I've seen people online actually fill their squash flowers up with some kind of squash cream filling or something like that and baking the flowers. And it always seems
They,
really enticing. So that might be something that you can do with the squash flowers.
I have to Google this. Yeah, it's always nice to hear these things. It can be new ideas.
I know.
There's so
I
much
know.
cool stuff we can try in the
Yeah.
kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So do you ever like watch movies or TV shows or books in your spare time?
I've been watching The Last Airbender, the Avatar
Mhm. Yeah.
series on Netflix. I used
Yeah.
to watch that as a kid. I was like the cartoons, but
Nostalgia. Yeah.
yeah, but they're actually really good. I watched
Yeah.
the movie in the cinemas. Did not really like that one. I thought it just wasn't like the cartoons at all. But the new series on Netflix is very much like the cartoons, and they're doing a really good job. I really love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Speak your truth. Yeah.
Mm.
Um
And then the Lord of the Rings as well. The Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings is up there.
I feel ashamed because I never got into like Lord of the Rings, or like I read some of the Harry Potter books, which I'm very aware that it's not the same as Lord of the Rings, but in the sense of like it was popular at the same time, and it was this like, you know, franchise kind of thing. I never got into it and I feel so left out.
You just need to do a movie marathon, you know?
Yeah, I really do need to do that movie marathon. So my last question for you before we end off this section is, do you have a role model either in your professional life or your personal life?
Mm. Yeah, I saw that question on the agenda. I was thinking about that, and I feel like there's not really one role model. I feel like throughout my life there's been multiple role models. My dad would have been one. Um, he's like a builder, like a carpenter, and
Yeah.
he he built some, you know, some pretty cool things. And from when I was young, I was always looking at it, being pretty
Oh, that
intrigued
is
by
really
building
sweet.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
but being in Australia, your family's on the other side of the world, and you naturally got searching for those like role models that representing a father figure or a mother figure. It's not necessarily the same, but there's this one guy that I worked for in this property that had like this really cool like property that and I was working for him for a while, and he was a really wise man, and he was teaching me lots of stuff. And he actually basically digged out this dam from his property and used all of the clay from the dam to build his own house. And then he filled up,
Oh.
and then he digs all these swales around his property that guides all the water towards this dam. And then the water from the dam gets pumped into a rainwater tank on top of a hill, which then gravity feeds into all of his veggie gardens and fruit trees. He grows all of his own food. And I was helping him. He was teaching me all this stuff, like how to, mix the mud and fix up the cracks in the house, and then do the rendering. It looks kind of like a Hansel Gretel house thing. Very,
I love
very,
that.
very cool.
Yeah.
And teaching me about like doing the burn off. So there's lots of eucalypts in this forest, so we were always using the chainsaws to take down the dead timber and then burn it into like these piles when it's like the rainy season, and then using the ride-on mowers to go through the forest to clear up all of the dead material. And around there, if you don't do that, it just accumulates and creates like a fire danger. So it's a fuel.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different things that he was teaching me on how to take care of, your property if you live in an off-grid lifestyle. And I thought that was really, really cool. So yeah, that would have been one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds incredible. How long did he take to set this up?
Or it would I think it would have been there for years. He raised his children there.
Whoa.
He had a like an eco building company. So he builds other people's houses as well. And yeah, builders in Australia, they can make some pretty good money, and they they love that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and he sounds like just such a great role model. So it's really great that you managed to meet him and had someone like that to look up to for inspiration. When you're across the globe from your own father. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now moving on to the interview section. And my first question for you is, how would you define household management?
managing your household, I guess.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
what does
think that's a
that?
really deep. I think that goes a bit deeper for me. It's like your house. My philosophy is kind of like your house is like a bit of a physical representation of your internal state or mind
Yeah,
space. So if you have a clean, like my grandma told me that, when you wake up, you make your bed and clean your house, and it never made any sense until now.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
kind of understand now that if your house is a mess and it's like there's clutter, So once you do those things first, you're not letting the external world uh, influence where you're coming from and how you're doing your decision making. Because really, it's always coming from a place within first. And if you're coming from that mind state, then I feel like you have a lot more freedom in a sense. And you're setting your priorities
yeah.
for what is important to you, and kind of filling up your cup before you do anything else. And I feel like, that's kind of. Does that answer your question, or?
Oh, no, yeah, that totally answers my question. And I was actually going to say that I totally agree with you, especially with the part about prioritizing areas of the household depending on what your values or your interests are, which isn't exactly what you said, but I'm adding on to that.
Yeah.
And I guess you can really, like, when you go into someone's house, even if you don't know the person, I guess from what you see about where they manage their households, or which areas are the most done up or the most uh, equipped, you can kind of tell what this person's interests or priorities are, which again links back to you talking about how the household is kind of an embodiment of who you are as a person, which is really interesting to think about. Household management, it's an art, it's a science, it's all sorts of things. But my next question was going to be, what role do you think water management plays in the household?
I feel like you can get a sense of independence and freedom if you are catching your own rainwater and using it to grow your own food. And I was always really just intrigued by this whole idea, and that's it's kind of really depends on where you're at. Like if you're in a rental and it's not your place, it's really hard, I believe. But if you do own a house and you have your own garden and you're willing to invest a little bit more, then you can really dive deeper into that experience and path, But it's something to work towards, and I feel like starting somewhere small is gonna get you there. So if you want to have that place with the rainwater and the veggie gardens and all of that, I mean, I'm in a rental mall, and I don't have the most expensive veggie gardens, but we made a little shed. We were able to put the veggie gardens next to the roof of the shed, so when it is raining, the water just falls into the veggie gardens. And so it's a simple system that you can just do that. Another one would probably be, it just really depends on how much money you want to invest in your household and your garden. And so it depends on how much money you're making, and it's very different for everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. So what would you say is the importance of implementing sustainable practices in water management for the household?
I think just being mindful is really important to start with. Just appreciating that it is valuable, and that it is, and that is like a little bit of a rabbit hole that it's you put your attention somewhere and you're learning to appreciate something which is gonna grow. It's like you put your attention somewhere, it's gonna grow. You appreciate this water. It's like I said, it's like a rabbit hole. So you start to appreciate those things, and or it leads to somewhere. Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You're never sure where, but it's always gonna be somewhere that it's gonna be good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think are some common mistakes that homeowners make with their water management?
I guess the simple things that we do every day is like I wash the dishes, but I put the plug in the sink and I put soap in, and it just becomes one big, bucket of
Tub.
yeah. And you just wash your dishes and you use the dishwasher. It does some really simple things like limiting your shower, and I guess those are little things that leading you in a direction of putting your attention to, this is valuable to me, and then maybe at some point you will get a rainwater tank, and then that rainwater tank, you have a water saver, and you're able to use the rainwater tank to flush your toilet, and that's where you're really saving a lot of money. And I feel like those are the big things, that flushing your toilet all the time is water that is, extracted from an external source, pumped through the mains, and we're flushing the toilet all the time. It's like, it's crazy how we see water as a waste thing, and it's really just so precious. And I know there's lots of it, but I think we need to see rainwater tanks as maybe more important, but then again, not everybody is gonna buy a rainwater tank. So, imagine if everybody had to buy their own green beans and red beans and yellow beans. I feel like we need to see it as the same thing. They're very important, and then you're kind of looking more at a political government level solutions.
Yeah.
But in the household, I think if we are putting our attention to the little things, then we got to see the big picture as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So in your line of work, what are some of the most common misconceptions that you've heard about sustainable water management?
In misconceptions,
Yeah, well, kind of myths, if you will, ideas that people have about water management that are not necessarily correct.
I'm not too sure. Do you have an example?
Um, I'd say, well, maybe a misconception is that people think that it is hard to conserve water at home or hard to install systems and they just end up not wanting to do it altogether because they get intimidated by it. That
I
is an
understand what you mean.
example. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think there's probably lots of people that think, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to bother. And I guess you can't blame them for it because we're working so bloody hard all the time. And there's like really, we think it's quicker. And it does require a little bit more time and attention and thinking about it. But it's also like we have been educated and programmed to think in the way of that's just normal and that's always been normal. And so we have to kind of redefine what is normal. Maybe flushing our toilet all the time with water isn't normal. I know the idea of having a composting toilet for a lot of people is disgusting. That's repulsive. And I think, why? The dog, cow, all these animals, they poo in the wild and they eat and they turn it into fertilizer, which is feeding then the soil. And it's this beautiful cycle creating more life. And only in the human world do we have this thing where we have waste. And then the waste is just accumulating, and then we need human-made solutions to take care of it. And it just really doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you can, like, work at this one property, they've got a really nice composting toilet, and it works really well. They have a bag of sawdust, and you just put that on top after, and then you need to twist this thing, and it turns it all over, and then it turns it into compost, and then that can be used in the garden to grow all these plants, and you don't have to use any water. And I feel like that's one of those things where that's probably the biggest misconception, is that we think it's normal to flush the toilet. It's like, I mean, I've flushed my toilet too, because which rental is gonna have a composting toilet? I don't know.
They're gonna evict you. Yeah. That's really interesting, because I also, like many others, have had this misconception. And it actually, now that you have provided me with an example, sounds like these sustainable water management practices don't necessarily have to be elaborate, and they don't necessarily have to be expensive either. So what are some other simple, kind of very general water management practices and solutions that you've heard of that most people can use?
Well, I guess one of them is showering in a bucket. I mean, I don't really do this. I've tried it, but it requires you to get a bucket, and I guess it's a nice thing to have a shower in a bucket, and then when the bucket is full, you stop the shower and you just use the bucket for your bath. That does require you to carry a bucket through your house, and I don't only choose to do that because the water will go everywhere, and then I have to go into the garden, but then I have to dry myself up with a towel and put clothes on, and it's just this whole. That's one thing, but then the other one would be to connect the water from the shower to the garden, and then whenever you have a shower, the water just goes straight into the garden. So
Right. Yeah.
that's the water that from our sink as well, and from our bath and from the shower, we can use that in the garden. And I feel like you're not doing that enough. And that's also something that needs to be coming from the pocket of the homeowner. And a lot of people are not going to choose to do that because they simply don't want to spend the money on it. I mean, most people that I know that spending money on these type of practices are people that are making good money, and they are in an industry where they are somewhat related to sustainability and science. So there's smart people that are working in science or sustainability, that caring about how they're using their water and how they choose to use it on their property. But for most people, are just probably just too busy and not really keen to spend the money on these type of systems, And that's where you're looking at you do this like the winging bin situation. And
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I had no idea that any of these things were even possible at all. So that's very eye-opening to me. And as a founder of a company that specializes in natural landscapes, sustainable water management, and organic gardening, are there systems like rain harvesting system or drip irrigation that you'd recommend implementing as well? And how much do they cost?
So there's the hydro water buffers that I prefer to install because they work really well and they absorb a lot of water. And there's different types of units that we can install. So let's say for a fruit tree orchard, you would have a 40-liter unit next to each tree, almost connected with the pipe. So that while connected, it's in the buffer, and then it outflows into the next one, Or you have a drip line that goes and fills up all of these big sponges under the ground at the same time. And then they are giving the water to the deeper water. So instead of the water being on top of the ground, it goes straight to the deeper ground. So most of the water would normally be evaporized by the sun and absorbed by weeds on the surface. So now by putting the water under the ground, it goes straight to the roots of the trees. Doesn't get absorbed by the weeds, so they have less weeds and there's no water loss to evaporation. So we've had done lots of research where they're actually seeing that they have 30% more fruit, 60% less water. So it's huge numbers, and they're using it in big orchards, in industrial things. So I like to use those, but for clients that are a bit more on a budget, you can just install a simple drip irrigation system, and that seems to do the job as well. I prefer probably drip irrigation because it's a little bit more precise than a sprinkler. A sprinkler just goes everywhere, which is good for if you have a lawn or for your grass. If you do want to water the garden for, because you just simply don't have that yet. And then having it from a source that is ideally rainwater from a tank. Yeah.
Yeah. And what native plants are well suited for low water landscaping and potentially also drought tolerant gardens?
Yeah. So this really depends on where you're at, in what part of the country or what country you're in. But, you also just kind of Google, well, what are the drought resilient species in this area? And it just gives you a whole list. Where I'm in is in, subtropical climate in the east coast of Australia, near Byron Bay. And there's lots of tropical rainforest trees, but there's also areas where it's a bit more swampy, and there's some areas that are a little bit more dry. Now, I also lived in Torquay, southwest of Australia for a while, where you have a different, more dry type of climate. And generally you'd have lots of shrubs and grasses and eucalypts that are very drought resilient. Most native species seem to be fine without water, as long as you give them enough compost, fertilizers, and consistent water at the start. To have a good start, they seem to manage fine without a sophisticated irrigation system, which is just like a drought resilient native garden. If you wanted to do some more with fruit trees, you do want more consistency on nutrients. Yeah.
That's really good to know. So, lastly, before we end off this section, could you provide any advice on how homeowners or even people renting can monitor and manage their water usage in the household?
Let's be mindful of the water you're using. I guess is using timers, and buckets, and having the sink and full. And you, and yeah, it's hard to think about this particular one. I do specialize in building gardens and irrigation, and the household is not really like, well, I mean, if you have a rainwater tank, you can have a floater in the timer system, so like a floating mechanism that kind of measures how much rainwater there is in your water tank. And there's water saving devices that allow you to, let's say, flush your toilet with rainwater instead of a mains. And if the rainwater tank is empty, it will switch back to the mains. So there's different products and systems that we can install that aren't super expensive, but actually help us save money on all our water bills. So there is a huge incentive
Yeah.
for homeowners and even people to invest in things that are good for the environment, and in the long term, it's going to help them save money at the same time.
Yeah, the timer thing that you brought up was actually interesting. You could probably use that for a number of things as well. Like if you're showering, especially during winter when it's so cold, you tend to stay in the shower way longer than you need to because it's warmer in there. So potentially even setting a timer for that could be useful as well. So like little things and habits, I guess, would go a long way. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree. I think a timer is nice. I do think that they should come up with some better alarms, because the alarms on my phone, they're horrible. Like I choose an alarm sometimes, and then I'm picking it. I'm picking one, and they're all horrible. Like I don't, so
S-
yeah.
s- So, what kind of alarms do you have on your phone now, and what type of alarm do you wish you had?
Maybe a nicer instrument, something that is beautiful, like waking me up with like, I had this one particular one that I thought I turned off for all of my alarms. And then I put on like 5:45, and then it goes off in the morning, and it's like, and I'm like, oh no, the world's ending.
Oh,
And it's just so stressful. And then I've got another one, which is a little bit less stressful, which is, I think, more like guitar sounds or something. But yeah, come on.
yeah. Yeah, I know the one that you're talking about, and I have that, and I might be one of the psychos that you might disagree with, because I actually like that alarm. I think it's really effective in waking me up.
Well, I mean, it is good because, our body naturally does produce cortisol in the morning to actually get us out of bed. So the more cortisol, the better. That's why we love coffee so much as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
just
but
helps
like
us.
yeah, to your credit, most people would disagree with me and agree with you in that that shouldn't be the default alarm.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it does
Yeah.
help you stop the shower as well. It's like, okay, fine, fine, fine. I'll
Yeah.
get out of the
Yeah.
shower and I'll turn it
Yeah.
off.
It's yeah, it's because it's incessant, so it's
Well,
effective. Otherwise, what's going to keep you from continuing what you were doing in the first place? Like, so, well, it kind of depends. Maybe some people have more self-discipline. I don't.
yeah,
So that's the only way to get me out. So I guess
that's
to each
true.
his own. We'll see. Like, if you are watching this on YouTube, please like leave in the comments like what alarm do you prefer. But before we digress, let's move on to the practices and habits section. So what is a habit that you practice at home to manage your water usage in the household?
I have a green bin that is I use it for cooking. So I put a big Tupperware box next to my chopping board, and I use it to chop all the vegetables, and then I put all the leftovers into the Tupperware box, and then I go outside and I put the Tupperware box with green waste into the green bin. Now, ideally, I'd have a composting system that is turning it into, compost. But the green bin is fine too, because the council turns it into compost as well. Then when that's empty, there's all this vegetable juice and it's been stinky, but you don't smell it if the lid is on it. But I use the hose to rinse off the bucket, and then I put all of that water with vegetable juice onto my vegetable garden. And then I might have to do that 3 times to clean it properly before I take it for a final clean with maybe some spray. And then I put it away. So that's like, that's 3 Tupperware boxes of water with nutrients from vegetables. So that's like going to be good for the soil that I can use on my veggie garden, which is just a small little thing. But like I said, there's a rabbit hole. So once you start doing these little things, you gotta find more things, and it's satisfying in a way because you feel good about yourself, and you appreciate the water, you appreciate the vegetables, and you're a little bit more in harmony with your garden. And that again is also a rabbit hole, which is gonna attract things to your life. Like things are only gonna get better coming from a good place. And these little things help us being coming from a good place as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you there on, once you start going into this rabbit hole, it's really just like a matter of when are you going to dip your toes in, so that you can gradually get into the pool. So yeah,
that's
these
a
sound
nice
like,
one.
yeah. That actually sounds like the practice that you shared with us sounds like a good way to start, along with a lot of other habits that we mentioned in the episode today. So that was really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we're moving on to the open mic section, and this is your opportunity to talk about anything that you're passionate about. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
All right. So I'm actually working on a let me say it. So when I was getting into gardening, I got in contact with my uncle. I told my uncle, I love gardening. I think I want to maybe make it my career. I want to maybe have my own piece of land one day, grow all my own fruit. I want to have my whole fruit forest, fruit trees, vegetable gardens, animals, and I want to capture all my rainwater in a dam, pump it up the hill, and feed it into the gravity feed it into the fruit trees and veggie gardens, all of these things. And he told me about hydro rock, which is the water buffers, and he said, well, maybe you need to contact these guys, and they'll be able to help you. You can sell their products and then install them for people. And so I sent them an email, got into contact with them. Now I am their ambassador, and they introduced me to lots of different people, and they help me and I help them by installing their product and promoting that. And they in return take me to the irrigation conference in Adelaide and introduced me to the Rainwater Harvesting Association, meet all of these people, and they introduced me to Phil from Surebred Permeable Paving. And Phil contacted me and he showed me his product. Now, Surebred Permeable Paving is a grid system made from recycled irrigation pipes. So they turn it into little bits of pieces, all made from Australian waste, and then melt it down into a grid system, which clicks into each other like Legos. Now, this replaces concrete. So you install it on top of a layer of road base, which is then compacted, and then you install the grid system, and then you can fill it up with an aggregate, which is like small pieces of stone and gravel. Then when it's raining, the water goes through the grid system and goes into the ground. And so it helps to recharge the groundwater table and prevents puddles, and you're still able to drive big trucks on it, land an airplane on. It holds a lot of weight. And the cool thing about this is that I kind of think what I want to do with my business is to install the true grid with the hydro underneath it. So the rain goes through the grid and then into these water buffers. So what I would love to create is to have big parking spaces for showgrounds or boat ramps or camping grounds. This is great for camping grounds. And have instead of concrete, having a permeable surface where we can park cars, boats, tents, caravans, you name it, and being able to let the water go through the surface instead of it being on top of the surface and not being able to go anywhere. You can absorb all of that water and bring it to native revegetation around those parking spaces. You can really redefine the way that we park and have pathways and parking spaces. And I think that's that's the kind of direction I want to take my business in. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds incredibly creative. How much progress have you made on this?
Yes, so I have been doing the Aarde Werk installations at the start, and now recently I started doing some camping grounds with the true grid. So they've made a concrete driveway, a couple of concrete slabs, and they're gonna put on a couple of caravans for people to stay in. And then instead of having the driveways in concrete, it's all made from true grid, so a permeable surface. So when it is raining really hard, that water can all just be absorbed through the ground and build. So I've been doing some projects now for some camping grounds, and I'm making some cool content. So they actually refer me to these projects. So by working with them as their ambassador, I make really cool content. I have a friend of mine who's a videographer who's making some photos of all the big machines doing all the work, and us like making the GoPros in the mouth, laying the grid on the ground. And that's how we kind of create content to promote their product so that they can get more jobs, they can sell more true grid, we can get more jobs installing the grid, and in return, we're helping each other grow. And this is a great referral thing, So as a landscaper, it's great to work with people that have products that you can use to install and then make pictures and photos and videos to promote it, and then in return they get people work. So it's like, it works as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a really innovative space, and it sounds like you also have found this community where you just really belong in. So that's great to hear. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cees, and for, contributing to this very insightful discussion. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, and potentially even see the videos that you have been creating or participating in, where can they go?
So I've got an Instagram where I post most of my work, which is at Aarde Werk. AARDEWERK.
All right.
AARDE.WERK. And my website is aardewerk.com.au. And then there's hyderrock.com.au and suregridpaver.com.au as well. And
All
my
right,
Facebook
amazing.
is Casey. Yeah.
Yeah, we will link those in the show notes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you once again, Case, for joining us today. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
You've been listening to On the House, produced by the Household Management Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at hm.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Yastra. Thanks for tuning in.